we are going to move forward with our next conversation. And I actually am excited about this one because I get to be on camera for a little longer. But jokes aside, we're going to have an interesting conversation. And I think a lot of people would definitely be interested in learning about it. So I will welcome our next speaker and who I will be chatting with, I think. Trinh Nguyen, she's Chief of Worker Empowerment, City of Boston, working with the Office of Mayor Michelle Bew. Sorry about me. That and then I think, are going to talk about a few interesting things that Boston is doing, from a workplace, work policy, and I think worker empowerment type conversation. So we're going to talk about what Boston is doing for future of work. We do have about 28-ish minutes, 29-ish minutes. So we're going to try and get as much information from Trin as possible. So we'll dive right in. Welcome, Trin. Great to have you here today at WorkCongress.
Great. Thank you. And thank you, Sumai, for having us and for having me. So I just want to thank all the WorkCongress staff, volunteers, and collaborators for pulling this amazing event together. It's such an important topic. So thank you for hosting it. I've also listened.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say we were gonna try to divvy it up into different segments so we can kind of cover each of those areas, focus areas related to the topic. So I'm gonna open up the floor to you. I think what we can do is maybe if you could start off with what Boston's strategy has been to address the future of work, right? And maybe you can also talk about some critical partnerships you've had, the public sector, private sector partnerships. Also, maybe if there were any challenges, right? Any challenges and how your team and the city itself is working around, and how policies are being created to rethink work. So we'll begin with that, and then I think we're going to move on to the other questions I have in mind.
Great, thank you. And I want to thank the WorkCongress staff and other presenters as well. Also want to thank the participants for tuning in today. We recognize that you have a demanding schedule and competing interests, so thank you for listening and sharing as well. And so I know that this kind of fireside chat or dialogue is just one way in which we can make connection. So I hope to learn from you and your work in the future as well. I want to first by opening to say that I'm very honored to serve in the cabinet of Michelle Wu, mayor of the city of Boston, and the first woman and first person of color to be mayor in this great city. I'm also proud to be a resident and public servant for the city of Boston. As you know, we had a pretty quick and robust post-pandemic recovery. By 2021, which has the most recent year available, Boston's gross city product increased by 7%, which is $155.9 billion in 2021. So you can see how we bounced back. It indicates a mighty recovery and reflected on the city's strong growth trajectory. We also have a AAA bond rating and have enjoyed the economic benefits and competitive advantage of the businesses and the employers here in the city of Boston. The business and employers' outlook remains strong and positive by the year end of 2023, with the annual average unemployment rate of about 3.2%. And this competitive unemployment rate continues in the past 28 months. So you know that's very sustained. The growth industry that drives the labor market and the workforce, obviously, is healthcare, life sciences, information technology, construction, and finance, to say a few. It remains one of the most competitive research and development markets in the country and arguably in the world. We are one of the largest funding recipients of NIH funding. For example, in 2020 alone, Boston received 2.3 billion in NIH funding, second to the nation to New York City. And this isn't a surprise that Boston has one of the best talent pools in the world. And obviously, we have 32 renowned university and colleges with one of the highest educated resident population. That's 53.4% of residents in Boston has a bachelor's degree or higher. That's extremely competitive for the city. But we know that with this economic growth comes with complex, deep challenges for inequities for the city of Boston. And just to name a few, and we really want to grapple with that. No one wants to, just talk about the great growth of the city, but we also want to be upfront about tackling some of the challenges so we can come together on the innovative solutions. In the near future, we know that the majority of the jobs in Massachusetts and in Greater Boston require some post-secondary education and training. In by by uh, in tw- in 3 to 5 months or upcoming years, 30% of Boston residents 25 years or older would need a post-secondary education or training to compete for some of these competitive jobs. And of all the jobs in Massachusetts, 73% will require some kind of post-secondary education and training. And that's according to projections of Georgetown University research of labor markets in the Boston area. We also know that Boston's highly educated workforce reinforces an overall reliance on 4-year degrees for jobs that could be accomplished through certificates or other training mechanisms. Residents with bachelor's degree or higher is about 53.4%, while the other half is 46.6%. We know that the challenges of lower paying middle skills jobs in the city of Boston are disproportionately dominated by people of color and women, while higher paying ones are predominantly occupied by white males. And of the top middle skills jobs in the greater Boston area, in the 10 lowest paying jobs, 60% of the workforce was women and 40% were people of color. In the 10 highest paying ones, only were 24% of people of color. So you can see the income gaps and the wage gaps amongst our labor force and the challenges within the city of Boston. We also have a wealth income gap in the city of Boston, and for the residents, median household incomes for Black and African American identified alone was 56,000, and median households for Hispanic and Latinos was 49,000, and the median household income for non-Hispanics or white household was 125,000. You can see that huge gap. And so there's some of, as we work together with employers, stakeholders, community colleges, workforce development, and other parties within the city of Boston, we know that we have to have a multifaceted interdisciplinary policy that Mayor Wu and the city is prioritizing. No one, but to hone in on the skills training and career trajectory for all of the residents and workers in Boston, we have to start. One is to address the equity gap for lower wage workers. The government in the city of Boston in the last 2 years is led by example because we are the largest employer, if not one of the largest employer, if not the largest employer in the city. When Mayor Wu came into the office, all of the collective bargaining agreements had expired. And so we saw this as an opportunity to address head on the inequities and the wage gaps. Our cabinet and the team and the mayor worked diligently to negotiate new contracts that will have a real impact for workers and for communities. We've completed at least 45 collective bargaining agreements. And most notably, we had a contract with the Boston Teachers Union that included more sick leave for educators and improved services for immigrant students and kids with disability. We also recently had completed contracts with the two biggest civilian unions, AF ASFME 93 and SEIU 888. And these groundbreaking contracts focused on raising the floor for workers who make 60,000 or less and allows for sick and um, bereavement leave for employers during their 6-month probationary period and provides option for a 4-day work week to support mental health and work-life balances, especially for workers who can only work in person. And so we knew we had to lead by example as the city coming into uh, asking employers to do more and to work with workers as well. So we knew that we know we cannot support our workers without employer partners. So we recruited top employers to do businesses in the city of Boston, but know that you're here for the talent of those who have a bachelor's degree, but we also have a talent pool who don't have a bachelor's degree that can fill and meet your talent needs up and down your supply chain, and to ensure that employers have what they need, but then also providing equal access for those who don't have a bachelor's degree to enter to a market and compete in these good paying jobs. And we cannot do worker empowerment without our employer partners. They're essential to this work. And we know that employers have great models, great thinking, and great values to come to the table. And they want to do the right thing and work with the city of Boston and to work with employees at the same time. For example, we have a great long-term partnership with Mass General Brigham Hospital. It has more than 25,000 employees. The hospital is the largest non-governmental employer in Boston, and we work very closely with them and area hospitals for training, credentials, and upward mobility for Boston residents who don't have a bachelor's degree. Vertex, Vertex Pharmaceuticals is another global biotechnology company that invests in scientific innovation to create transformative medicines for people with serious and life-threatening diseases. We have been working with Vertex as what we call an influencer employer in life sciences sector. For jobs that don't require a bachelor's degree, Vertex stepped up as an employer in the last they took about a year and a half to go through all of their jobs, and they conducted a comprehensive work audit within their company and found that 10% of their current job positions don't require a bachelor's degree. So they work with our training partners and community colleges to engage them on curriculum development, recruitment, job readiness, and also what is it that employers are looking for so that they can fill these jobs that don't require a bachelor's degree. And they've also worked with us on other life sciences employers as well. State Street Corporation, small businesses that employ almost 43% of the labor force in the city have also teamed up with us to ensure that good paying jobs, career ladder jobs, um, can be connected to residents and career pipelines and credentials as well. So making sure that these career pipelines and stakeholders and systems alignment are there so that um, we can provide equitable pipelines so towards these good paying jobs.
Great, great. I think some of that, I think, kind of easily, seamlessly goes into the next question I had in mind to say, what are some lessons that Boston might have learned through the process that possibly could be learned by other cities as well, if they're looking to define their workforce strategies. So I know you kind of mentioned a few things, right? So could you elaborate a bit around what would be those key takeaways for other cities looking to do similar things?
Absolutely. So one, I just want to say that there are sister cities around the country. I sit on the U.S. Conference of Mayors Workforce Development Council, and there's at least 140 around the country. And they're all doing amazing works. And we always listen and learn from other areas. But a few things that we think that in Boston, we have great tools. And I mentioned earlier about the city of Boston as an exemplary employer partner to step up. We can't really ask employers to do the kind of work that we're anticipating if the city of Boston as an employer can't do it ourselves. And so a few of those tools, so you have seen some of the mayor who have really put her stake in the ground and put her stake in the game by doing collective bargaining that benefits workers. So she wants to send that message out to employers as well. The other piece that I think that are good toolkits is like, cities and municipalities have very good purchasing power. Our annual budget for the city of Boston is at least $3 billion in our budget. That's incredible and that's powerful.
Yes.
And so as that as that with that purchasing power, the city of Boston can use innovative tools to ensure minority women businesses have access to some of those contracts. We have prevailing wage, good quality, family sustaining wages and career pathways into those bidding documents and procurement so that we can leverage the purchasing power that we have. So those tools, I know our colleagues from Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland, Oregon, Charlotte, and I just connected with colleagues from New Orleans have great models in which they put innovative workforce policies and programs into their procurement, and those tools are very important for municipalities to leverage their purchasing power.
Okay.
The other thing that I want to just share too, Sumay, is that we have this, and Boston is very unique in a sense that we're very lucky to have one of the best research development institutions. We have educated workforce. We have the best education leaders in that. We have elite colleges. We also, like other municipalities, we have a strong service industry and a tourist industry. And we use that as a pillar too, and other cities do too. And workers drive that economic development in that service industry. So we need workers in that industry. So we can't really get rid of those jobs. I mean, not everybody wants to be scientists. We want all young people. Not everybody gets to be the CEO or big managers or big shots. My parents came here and washed dishes for 40 years, and that's what they love doing. And so we want to make sure that these service industry jobs are respected jobs. So we want to make those jobs, we don't want to get rid of them. We want to make those good paying jobs, and good paying jobs for the service industries and those who are working. And the bottom of the ladder, we have to make sure there are health benefits, pensions, career mobility, predictable schedules, and all those great things that we desire for ourselves and our families. We want to make sure that they have access to the great benefits too, because the service industry and those workers drive the economic engine of the city everywhere. So we want to make sure we don't get rid of those jobs. We want to make sure that those are respectable, good jobs. So that's the other advice that I would, and tool that I would also advocate for, is that every city needs a tourist industry. We all need that, but we want to make sure that those jobs are good paying jobs and workers there are well taken care of so that they can keep the tourist industry strong.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, I think those seem like a great ones. I was thinking about, so I'm in the DC area, so I'm like, okay, yes, a lot of that applies here to the DC area. especially the city itself. So, again, let's also talk a little about any cool, interesting projects or initiatives that excite you. Actually, I think in that realm of workforce development and empowerment that your team is doing or the city of Boston is doing right now.
That's great. We have so many that we're working on. I mean, for example, we have the Earned Income Tax Credit providing free tax prep to about 11,000 Boston workers and families, putting back 24 million of tax refunds back into the pockets of families and lower wage workers. And that money gets recycled back into the community. We have credit building for low wage workers. We have safe banking products for workers and families. So there are several initiatives that you can look online and on our website that could interest you. We are happy to follow up as well. But one of the areas that we're very excited about is this climate justice green workforce development initiative. And we all know that cities are striving towards that. We want to decarbonize our built environment because we know that buildings, municipal buildings, and residential homes are the big contributors of, um, you know, uh, pollution, trash, and a variety of negative environmental impacts. We also want to improve that the built environment, but also improve the transportation system because we want people to use transportation, um, public transportation instead of driving in their cars. And we want to grow the economy at the same time. And so putting those green initiatives and regulations in, we don't want it to impede the economic and the business growth of the city. So it's very important that we do all of those things all at once because we believe it's a win-win strategy. The mayor's climate action plan is a win-win strategy for the city of Boston. We can, as long as my colleagues on the phone and on this webinar knows, and too, you can have great evidence-based scientific plans to the yin yang. It's really smart. We can get that. We have plans of plans. But you know what? You need workers to implement those plans.
Exactly.
And you need a workforce to be able to do that. And if we don't start investing in two things, one is to encourage employers to invest in moving lower or entry level workers and giving them those green credentials and moving them up the ladder to help with the climate action plans and operationalize that. We need to get employers and everybody on board in investing in lower wage workers and entry level workers. And then we also have to do incumbent worker training. What is it that building maintenance, janitors, bus drivers, what additional training in green technology can they be working towards in order to obtain so they can move up the ladder? As you know, the city of Boston is a coastal city. And in our reports, we found that over 11,000 structures and 85,000 people will be directly exposed to frequent stormwater flooding in 2070. And because of that, annualized losses for floods will increase with sea level rise to about 137 million in 2030 to 1.39 billion in 2070. That's a huge loss for the city.
Right.
And so we want to make sure that we're funding and providing workforce development training in green jobs, EV maintenance, for example, with the bus fleets and the electric cars that are coming on board. We also know nature-based solutions is very important. So we have a Power Core and other workforce development programs that train entry-level or lower wage workers into nature-based landscaping, giving them certifications so that they can operationalize some of these climate action plans. We're also implementing curbside EV charging with electricians. We're working with the electrical union to make sure that we have enough diverse workers to install EV charging and do EV maintenance. We have retrofit affordable apartments. We need contractors with deep energy retrofit certifications and electricians on heat pumps. In our public housing stock, we also need gas workers who are working in that industry and move them towards geothermal. And those are some of the examples in which we're taking, current workforce and providing them with upskilling so that we can get the workers to operationalize some of these plans. So that's what we're excited about. Happy to share more offline.
Oh, sure. Those are all like great initiatives. And I think a lot of companies in the private sector, but also in the public sector, a lot of organizations, even cities are moving towards green economy focused, work, environment focused work. I think there's a lot of jobs being created in that space as well. So I think it's a pretty cool area that more and more folks, I see more and more also people in general, right, in the workforce who are interested in getting positions and jobs in that area too. So I think it's pretty cool. Now, I think as we kind of get closer to wrapping up, the other question I had, I think this is also going to be important. Like, how do you see the role of federal government and in terms of, whether it's policy development or maybe incentives for states or cities, right? And how it impacts states and cities. How do you see that role now and also coming in the coming years, in the next few years?
Yeah. I think that, government and the federal government in particular, federal, state, and city governments play a huge role and invest in the infrastructure of the economy and in cities, and ultimately they need to do more. We need to do more on putting money and training dollars towards workforce development. Everybody talks about workforce development. Everybody talks about a huge infrastructure bill. The IRA that just came down about a year and a half ago is in the billions. Energy contracts, climate readiness, infrastructure bills, billions of dollars coming from the Department of Energy, from U.S. Department of Labor, from HUD, from housing, from affordable housing, to a variety of federal agencies. What would be very helpful, and what's actually needed, is that when you have those large chunks of funding coming down, you have to demarcate it towards workforce development. And so what are actual training dollars that are embedded within those billions of dollars that are coming down the pipeline? What are the requirements that you have to engage in residents and diverse constituents into those career pipelines? Should be grant-making priorities. We also have been hearing a lot that training dollars and credentials are absolutely important. Employer engagement is absolutely important. But what's also important is childcare. Childcare is so expensive. So including childcare costs or subsidized childcare so that workers and dislocated workers, underemployed residents can actually make the time for that training. They need childcare support. They need career development support.
Right.
They need transportation reimbursement. So those are the key things that need to be embedded in the funds that are coming down the bills as well.
Okay.
And so The best practices, what Work Congress is doing right now, is something that the federal government should also be doing to help get the word out. Best practices, what's working, what's not working in the ground, and then bring municipalities and workforce investment boards into the conversations as you shape policy. Not wait until the last minute to say, we have 40,000 workers, we need them tomorrow. Well, as you all know, and as we know ourselves, that career pathways and training and education takes time. It's a journey, and it is a career trajectory. Needs more time than just 24 hours of boot camp. So we need a more intentional, meaningful career pathways for those who want to get there. And then we also want to provide that real-time, diverse talent pool to meet the demands of employers and the labor market as well. So preparing and planning ahead is always important, and making sure that those decisions are part of policies and the budget. You always have great policies, but it costs money to implement them. So making sure that there's enough financial resources for partners, community colleges, workforce development partners, and workforce investment boards to access those funding to make sure that we get employers the right workforce.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and we are just right on time. So thank you so much, Trinh. I appreciate your time. A lot of great insights. Much luck in all the future initiatives that your team is doing. And I guess Boston will continue setting an example for other cities to follow. So thank you so much for your time. We appreciate your time today. Thank you.